Drake Maye at 23 years old is already playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. What a performance on prime time on Sunday Night Football against the reigning defending MVP in Josh Allen. Drake Maye went on the road in Buffalo and put on a show. This was his coming out game, in my opinion. He has proved to now the NFL world that he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and the New England Patriots are all the way here. This was a deciding game on which way this season was going to go for them. They were 2-2. You felt like a loss would really hurt their chances at making any sort of run this year, but with the win, everything is now in front of them. You can win the division. You're within a game now of Buffalo. The wild card spot is looking really nice as some teams like Cincinnati and Baltimore have fallen out of the mix. The New England Patriots all of a sudden have completely turned things around in 5 games, and I can credit it to a few different reasons as of right now. For one, we'll talk about Drake Maye, and 2, we'll talk about Mike Vrabel. But for Drake Maye, what a performance on Sunday Night Football. I was blown away with the big time throws that he was making, especially on that final drive to get them into field goal range, holding off that defender when it should have been a 10-yard loss. You go to 1st and 20. Maybe they go a little bit more conservative so that Buffalo has to waste their timeouts. But no, Drake Maye holds off that defender, gets it to Diggs. They end up picking up about 10 to 12 yards, and that completely changes the outcome of that entire drive. It was an unbelievable play, but more importantly, his performance throughout the entire game was unbelievable. I mean, big throw after big throw after big throw. He looked unbelievable. And when I think too, when you watch these games with some of the elite quarterbacks in our game, you understand that in the big moments, they can't turn the football over and they have to put on their cape. They have to be Superman. And for Drake Maye, he didn't turn the football over last night. And whereas Josh Allen, he turned the football over a couple of times. Now, Josh has done an unbelievable job of cutting down those turnover numbers. And I think it's hard to dispute that he is not one of the top 1 or 2 quarterbacks in our game as of right now. I would say he's number 2. But for Drake Maye, what it comes down to sometimes is, hey, who's going to make the big mistake in the big moment? And it was Josh Allen this game. It was not Drake Maye, the 23-year-old second-year quarterback who put on a show, went on the road, and went down there and beat Buffalo. This was his coming out party, in my opinion. I think Drake Maye was already off to a great start this season. With Jaden Daniels' injury, I think it was clear to say that he had taken that biggest jump from a year 1 to year 2 starter in the NFL, and it was a loaded quarterback class last year, but you really felt like Drake Maye had emerged as this top tier, high end quarterback in this game with the jump that he had already taken 4 weeks in, and being able to see what he could do in week 5 against a good defense, against a legit opponent. I mean, through the first 4 weeks of the season, I think Pittsburgh is a good team, but the Patriots turned the ball over 5 times and should have won that game. So right now you're looking at this saying, okay, we lose to Las Vegas in week 1, who is really bad. You should not have lost that game. You had Drake Maye throw the ball 46 times. He threw a pick. I don't know how you lose that game. You bounce back against Miami on the road. You lose to Pittsburgh, turning the ball over 5 times. Then you wallop Carolina. But you didn't feel like you played a tremendous team throughout that 4-game stretch. You wanted to see what New England looked like when they played one of the top tier teams in the NFL, and that's what we got to see on Sunday Night Football in prime time against Buffalo. And Drake Maye had an unbelievable game. This was so fun to watch, and I just watched the guys running back into the tunnel after the game. Mike Vrabel standing there dapping every single one of them up, that big embrace he had with Drake Maye, and I just thought to myself, I'm like, man, how could Tennessee let this guy go? As they're 1-4 and finally got their first win of the season on Sunday against the Cardinals, had that crazy comeback. But I think to myself, how could Tennessee let this guy go? I mean, he is such an unbelievable coach in 2 different seasons with not the most talented roster in the NFL. Got them to the AFC Championship, and a different year got them the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. Mike Vrabel was winning in Tennessee, and they said, no, this is not enough. We want Brian Callahan instead. And Brian Callahan has struggled as of late, and just as of his tenure in Tennessee, I should say. But I just watch Mike Vrabel, and I think, man, how could anyone let this guy go? Because he instills this culture in New England, and it's been apparent since he stepped foot through the doors in New England. I mean, he has been a culture setter. He drafts Will Campbell 4th overall, and you look at the teams that have drafted the tackles in the years past that have really laid out this blueprint. You look at the Chargers drafting Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater with Jim Harbaugh. They didn't draft Slater with Harbaugh, but they drafted Joe Alt with Harbaugh. They said, we don't want a top-tier receiver. We want Joe Alt. You look at Dan Campbell when he came over with the Lions, drafted Penei Sewell, didn't take a top-tier receiver. I look at these coaches taking the top-tier tackles to protect their franchise quarterback, and I'm looking at how it turns out, because Will Campbell maybe had his best game of the season last night against Joey Bosa, who's, still, even though he's up there in age, still one of the premier pass rushers in football. And Will Campbell did his thing and proved that he should have been taken with that 4th overall pick. But it comes down to culture. It comes down to Mike Vrabel saying, hey, we're going to kick you in the teeth. We're going to punch you in the mouth. We're going to bite your kneecaps, is what Dan Campbell would say. But that's what Mike Vrabel's all about. He is a player's coach. His guys love playing for him, and that culture that he instills is unbelievable. The defense played great last night. The offensive line did its thing protecting for Drake Maye. The one thing I will say about New England is, and even though Ramondre had 2 touchdowns, the fumbling problems, they're killer. And I don't know what Gibson's injury is going to look like for the time being, but I think you've got to give Travion Henderson the keys to the Ferrari at this point. He is without a doubt the number 1 running back on that team. He's so explosive. He's so dynamic. And I don't know if it's because you want to keep him for the season as it progresses. You don't want to burn him out, but it's like, you've got to give this guy some run. I mean, he is dynamic. You took him in the 2nd round for a reason. I think Ramondre is a good player, but it's clear he's having some fumbling issues right now. And I'm not saying they should just completely go away from him, but I want to see Travion touch the ball more, because he's not touching it nearly as much as I believe he should be. But this Patriots team, man, they're figuring it out. They're figuring out already 5 games in. And what I had said last week actually was like, this team's 2-2. They've got a huge test against Buffalo. The way I'm seeing it, the way I'm envisioning it is like, yeah, Drake Maye, he'll probably be a future top 5 quarterback in football. I think that is a very fair thing to say. And this was before last night's game. But I also said, with 2-2 playing Buffalo on the road, you're probably going to go to 2-3. I think you're going to be competitive. I think you could be over 500 this year. But realistically, I don't know if the playoffs are on the horizon because of how tough the AFC is, how tough this division is. I felt like the Patriots are still a year or 2 away. Last night proves to me, okay, this team can make the playoffs this year. Now, I want to see more. I'm not going to completely overreact after 1 week and say this team can get to the AFC Championship and beat, some great quarterbacks. But I think the playoffs is completely fair right now. I think this team can absolutely make the playoffs at 3-2. Mike Vrabel's still going to have them humble. I really, really was happy with what I saw from New England, and it exceeded my expectations, not only from the beginning of the year. I felt this New England team would win about 10 games coming into this year. I believe I said 10 was my official prediction for them, but I didn't have them making the playoffs. Now, I think 10 games is completely attainable, but I think with the way some of these teams have fallen out of the mix, I think they can get into the playoffs at 10-7. So we will see what New England does. The final point I'll make here, Stephon Diggs looked great. Stephon Diggs played a heck of a game. That's now 2 weeks in a row where he's been over 100 yards. He's really reemerging as this superstar number 1 receiver for Drake Maye. Hopefully he can continue it because they need those weapons on the outside for Drake. I just didn't think that it's been the best so far through the first 2 years of his career, and Stephon's really coming onto the scene now. But it's like he's already shown these flashes with, I would say an average receiving core. I think it can be a lot better when you look at some of the other receivers across the league. I would say it's an average receiving core, but Drake Maye's still making plays. He's still playing winning football, and that's how you've got one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL already. I've loved what I've seen from Drake Maye 5 weeks in, and I do believe he will be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL very, very soon. I'm Caden Kubler, and thank you guys for watching.